Good morning, baby. It's the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. And I'm Doug Rice. Oh, I can hear him. Did I say I want horns? I think I did. I did. Good morning, how are you? 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:01. This is the Doug Rice Show. That is right. And today we'll see how it goes. Oh, it's gonna go. Yesterday we had the inevitable pleasure. I hope I pronounced that right. It's a word that I treasure. Going over a PDF, which I found to be extremely interesting, and contained a lot of depth. The secret relationship between blacks and Jews. What a powerful headline. I had to get used to that. Anyway, so we went through that, and folks, so thankful to my moderators, the mighty, the wonderful, the Trina. Yes! Of course, Antoine Anderson, both here to regulate. But Trina told me a bit of information yesterday regarding the history of that publication, the history between blacks and Jews. I have so renamed it. It's actually called The Relationship Between Blacks and Jews by the Nation of Islam. And I was told by Trina that Minister Farrakhan, an individual I do all that I can to stay away from, only because he'll turn me to the dark side. I'm nearly certain of it. I am almost certain I don't know, I'd probably join the show in some way, shape, or form. But it's interesting to know that when he was in Israel, there were Jewish folks that determined he might denounce the PDF I was reading last night. And it's interesting, to know that he refused and they poisoned him, kind of thing that they do. And I kind of first thought, wow, what a reaction. And then I gained a bit of satisfaction from knowing that, I'm in the same boat rowing the same information, trying to relate it to the Negro nation. And as it would happen, Minister Farrakhan, for all intents and purposes, should be gone for doing the same thing. Now, of course, I'm not putting myself on equal footing with that king. Forgive me for even suggesting such a thing. But, it's interesting. It's powerful. And I do appreciate Trina for bringing that information to me. I found it quite interesting. It really has no relation to us turning to a different author or topic, only because I want to see how they hail from the other side. We know what a person who is Muslim, who is of the Islamic faith, what they might believe regarding, these individuals who have deemed themselves Jews. It's nothing wrong. It's a name they should use. But from this particular perspective, we're going to try to make a connective because, for God's sake, there's got to be some sort of corrective. And this gentleman will be one we look into peeringly and have some fun. Arthur Koestler is his name. And the book 13th Tribe is his claim to fame. But before I get to that, let me talk about my sponsor, Twidwear. Yes, right there, twidwear.com, TWIDWEAR. Write it down.com. Listen to me, folks. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This is legit stuff. And I had to go through the exercise this morning, not moments ago, because I didn't prepare myself before this show. I got in there, created an account. I put something in the basket of a certain amount. And there it was when I decided to check out. A place to put the promo code to get 10% off. No doubt. And that promo code for you folks are going to be TDRS. And you know, while I digress, I won't go so deep as to, perform the action. I won't give anyone the satisfaction. Plus, I don't need you to know my style. I might pick something you might pay for in a while. I don't know. I'm just joking. Listen, try this out, folks. Register. It's legit. You know, this gentleman has been at this for 13 plus years, probably going on 15, kissing 20 years ass of hard work. And at this, if you will. I have had the privilege of wearing some of his apparel. And I got to tell you, folks, there's some shocking, wonderful stuff in here at legitimate prices. And let me tell you something, the quality of the material. I mean, look, I love to death the effort from Twidwear. I call him Twidwear. You call him Twidwear. You hear? He's earned that. I call him Twidwear. But look, you kind of went overboard on the quality of the fabric. My goodness, y'all. I'm going to tell you something. Don't complain about the prices and be happy you get 10% off using the promo code TDRS, The Doug Rice Show, because I got to let you know the quality of this cloth is something to behold. I am not playing. You better hear what I'm saying. I mean, it's wow. Twitter, I'm not going overboard, I hope, because, all you got to tell me is stop. I might say no. No, I'm just kidding. No, the quality of this stuff is amazing. And I got to tell you, it's continually phasing. He's also got skincare, men's skincare, which I will be getting some to wear. As you can see, the driftwood, the face, the salt eucalyptus shower steamer. Oh boy, in that shower, I'd be a dreamer. So anyway, folks, look, this gentleman, Twidwear, I call him Twidwear. Did I say that? I think I did. He's got some good apparel there, okay? He's got men's, he's got foot gear. Foot gear is amazing. I mean, wow. You know, the runners, look at the runners. Look at the style. That's nice. I'd wear that a while, maybe twice. It's good stuff, folks. So please take down this particular show, the Twidwear show, as I call it, Twidwear.com, folks, register, do it legit, register for an account, check it out, and for God's sake, folks, buy something with no doubt. Use TDRS as the promo code. And I might do it, but I got to let the page reload. We're on a roll today. All right, thanks again, folks, for showing up. This is the Doug Rice Show, and just so you know, once again, before I go all in, we offer these PDF files, and on many faces there are worn Negro smiles because it's been a while. We don't have as much info out there as we need to have in front of us. We have been spoon-fed the nonsense, and I'll have that for none of us. And so I'm today going to go over a publication that I think ripe for the mental of the Negro nation, the 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler. Let's take a look at this. Let's check it out. All right, so again, thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to use the donation links below if you wish to give support to this show. And I will also send you PDFs for nothing. I will. I mean, listen, I want to make that point, folks. As much as I need your support, things have changed financially for myself and for others and for everyone. So there's no obligation for anyone. I only mention it because I think it's important that what we do be supported by those that watch folks like you. It allows me to compensate our great moderators, and I don't have to tell them I'll pay them later. Oh, just keep talking amongst yourselves. I'll get this out. All right, so the 13th Tribe, Arthur Koestler. Now listen, folks, this guy, he's got bona fides. He's got some solid quotients before our eyes. And let me let you check them out. Now, there are typically 99 pages of this complete document that I have for you, okay? Just to give you a heads up, I have put together just this many for you to peruse. I went too far, did I? Boom. And I'm going to go over just a few of the paragraphs of each of these chapters, okay? And let's see the information that I'm chasing after. Boom. About the author, Arthur Koestler, born 1905 in Budapest. Though he studied science and psychology in Vienna, at the age of 20, he became a foreign correspondent and worked for various European newspapers in the Middle East, Paris, Berlin, Russia, and Spain during the Spanish Civil War, which he covered from the Republican side. He was captured and imprisoned for several months by the nationalists, but was exchanged after international protest. In 1939, 1940, he was interned in a French detention camp. After his release, due to the British government intervention, he joined the French Foreign Legion, subsequently escaped to England and joined the British Army. Like many other intellectuals in the 30s, Koestler saw the Soviet experiment the only hope and alternative to fascism. He became a member of the Communist Party in 1931, but left it in disillusionment during the Moscow purges in 1938. Let me pause there just for a moment, folks. You may do well to look into the history of Russia and Moscow. And the reason I say that, it gives you a keen insight into the mind of our oppressors, as they are kin to and associated with those we'll be addressing today. And I say that to say, please look at what you see go over on across the seas as they appease their need to satiate their evil. I mean, these folks are going back to medieval, and it's just going to be a moment in time before these folks here are so inclined to duplicate what they see happening across the seas, as I've said. And it won't be long for too many of them might end up dead. And there's no reason for Negroes to participate or take part in any of the action they may see. Please, Negroes, for the sake of your own being, steer clear of all of the violence you'll soon be seeing. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's get back to this. His early books were mainly concerned with these experiences, either in autobiographical form or in essays or political novels. Among the latter, Darkness at Noon has been translated into 33 languages. After World War II, Mr. Koestler became a British citizen. And all his books since the 1940s have been written in English. He now lives in London. He has frequently lectured at American universities. He has a fellowship at the Center for Advanced Study of the Behavioral Sciences at Stanford. In 1964, the year I was born, 65, and 68, Mr. Koestler received the Sonning Prize at the University of Copenhagen for his contributions to European culture. He's also a commander of the Order of the British Empire, and as well as one of the 10 Companions of Literature. Elected to or by the Royal Society of Literature, his works are now being republished in a collected edition of 20, no less than 20 volumes. I'll be damned, and I most certainly am. And so, Mr. Koestler, his bona fides are established. His particulars are particled. We've gone down into the marrow of his manifestation. And so now for the Negro Nation, let us continue to delve into what I'm here to show you, the 13th Tribe, by the man, Arthur Koestler. Now, first chapter, Rise. Here we go. So, chapter 1, part 1. Dear God, thank God there are just a few pages of this, because a lot of this information I'd sure miss. All right, here we go. In Khazar, okay, chapter 1, the rise and fall of the Khazars. The rise and fall of the Khazars. Now, you know, we throw around that word Khazarian, Khazars, Ashkenazi, the derivative word from that root word Khazars. We sometimes turn and throw it around, and you got to get accustomed to that sound because it's a definitive description of what they expound. It's what it defines them definitively. It refines them diminutively. And we keep saying it, but you know, Khazaria was a place. Khazars was a face. And I think I'm back at this race. Hold on, we're back at it. I'm just, you know, I drift. Leave me alone. Rise. In Khazaria, sheep, honey, and I didn't say it. Don't the money. Jews exist in large quantities. Now listen, folks. I didn't say this. Do not get in your feelings regarding what I'm reading. Please don't disagree or agree. It's not for me to see or say. It's just for you to parlay what I'm doing here today, and I'm just going to keep on going. Let's see all the info they're throwing. All right, part 1. We're on to it. Khazaria, sheep, honey, and Jews exist in large quantities. And I'm not going to attempt that pronunciation. Yes, I will. Mukadasi descriptio imperi Muslimiki. How about that? That's it. Yeah, 10th century. Part 1. About the time when Charlemagne was crowned Emperor of the West, the eastern confines of Europe, between the Caucasus and the Volga, were ruled by a Jewish state known as the Khazar Empire. You know what? I think I'm going to roll into that again. Let's try it again. Let's do that. Say when. About the time when Charlemagne was crowned Emperor of the West, the eastern confines of Europe between the Caucasus and the Volga were ruled by a Jewish state known as the Khazar Empire. At the peak of its power from the 7th to the 10th century AD, it played a significant part in shaping the destinies of medieval and consequently of modern Europe. The Byzantine Empire and historian Constantine, whatever that name is there, must have been well aware of this when he recorded in his treatises on court protocol that letters addressed to the Pope in Rome and similarly those to the Emperor of the West had a gold seal worth 2 solidi attached to them, whereas messages to the King of Khazars displayed a seal worth 3 solidi. This was not flattery, but real politic. In the period with which we are concerned, wrote Berry, it is probable that the Khan of the Khazars was of little less importance in view of the imperial foreign policy than Charles the Great and his successors. Now, It's obvious that here it's meant to convey that the value and worth of the royalty involving the Khazars was was not outweighed by Charles the Great and his successors by that which is attached to the protocols delivered. 2 coins representing worth, 3 representing more worth, that not being flattery as it says, but real politics. Real politics. So, let's continue with the intro. The country of the Khazars, a people of Turkish stock, occupied a strategic key position at the vital gateway between the Black Sea and the Caspian, where the great Eastern powers of the period confronted each other. It acted as a buffer, protecting Byzantine against invasions by the lusty barbarian tribesmen of the northern steppes, Belgars, Magyars, Pechenegs, etc., and later the Vikings and the Russians. But equally, or even more important, both from the point of view of the Byzantine diplomacy and of European history, is the fact that the Khazar armies effectively blocked the Arab avalanche in its most devastating early stages, and thus prevented the Muslim conquest of Europe, Eastern Europe, as it states. Professor Dunlap of Columbia University, a leading authority on the history of the Khazars, has given a concise summary of this decisive yet virtually unknown episode. Now, what's that telling you, folks? Who are these folks? What kind of power did it take to prevent the invasion of a Muslim army? I mean, folks, if you've read anything about the armies of Islam, Saladin rings quite an alarm. In your mind, just search for him and you'll find some elegant and masterful machinery in kind. And so to have the Khazars and that army hold back, as it said clearly, the Muslim conquest of Eastern Europe. We're going to read about it. Let's see. Hold on one moment. The Khazar country lay across the natural line of advance of the Arabs. Within a few years of the death of Muhammad, AD 632, the armies of the Caliphate, sweeping northward through the wreckage of 2 empires and carrying all before them, reached the great mountain barrier of the Caucasus. This barrier once passed, the road lay open to the lands of Eastern Europe. As it was, on the line of the Caucasus, the Arabs met the forces of an organized military power which effectively prevented them from extending their conquests in this direction. Wars of the Arabs and the Khazars, which lasted more than 100 years, though little known, have thus considerable historical importance. The Franks of Charles Martel on the field of Tours turned the tide of Arab invasion. At about the same time, the threat to Europe in the East was hardly less acute. The victorious Muslims were met and held by the forces of the Khazar kingdom. Khazar, however you wish to pronounce it. It can scarcely be doubted that before the existence of the Khazars in the region north of the Caucasus, Byzantine, the bulwark of the European civilization in the East would have found itself outflanked by the Arabs, and the history of Christendom and Islam might well have been very different from what we know. Well now, that's a bit of information, isn't it, for the Negro Nation? I'd say that's some insightful information. That's some delightful connotation. I get chills just reading through that. Thrills just understanding the concept and the consequence of that. I mean, So here we have a very clear picture what's going on, and we can now kind of go into how the king of that time converted from the threat of Islam to Judaism. And that's an interesting. So Khazar country, however you wish to consider it or pronounce it, it what an established fact and predicate to what we'll do next. And so we're going to see how this goes. I kind of like this show. All right, so here we go. Chapter 2 on the Doug Rice Show. Thanks again, folks, for tuning in. Let's do a little study and see if we win. And again, I'm not going to read every page because let me tell you, this guy wrote insanely. He wrote, with a lot of force. Again, this is available by donation or request. I'm going to tell you donation works best, but I'm going to say this because it's important you hear it. And for anyone that shares this show, please share it. I'll give you these things for free. Just ask me. Just ask the trainer. We'll give them to you. We're not going to demand that you give us a donation. If you see something you like, we'll send it to you free. Okay? We just have to have some sort of a way to offer compensation for any donation as we share all of this information with the Negro Nation. That's really it. So I want that understood. Here we go. This ought to be good. Chapter 2, conversion. Oh, we were just talking about conversion, weren't we? Okay. Part 2. The religion of the Hebrews, writes Berry, had exercised a profound influence on the creed of Islam. And it had been a basis for Christianity. It had won scattered proselytes. But the conversion of the Khazars to the undulated religion of Jehovah is unique in history. Oh my goodness, how powerful an opening. This gentleman knew to write. What was the motivation of this unique event? It is not easy to get under the skin of a Khazar prince, covered as it was by a coat of mail. And mail, for those of you that may not know, is the armament that they'd go out into war with that would protect them. Okay, just to let you know. But if we reason in terms of power politics, which obeys essentially the same rules throughout the ages, a fairly plausible analogy offers itself. At the beginning of the 8th century, the world was polarized between the two superpowers representing Christianity and Islam. The ideological doctrines, were welded to power politics pursued by the classical methods of propaganda, subversion, and military conquest. The Khazar Empire represented a third force, which had proved equal to either of them, both as an adversary and an ally. But it could only maintain its independence by accepting neither Christianity nor Islam, for either choice would have automatically subordinated it to the authority of the Roman Empire or the Caliph of Baghdad. How interesting. And so we see the dynamic here, a trifecta of powers forming. And it seems at the beginning of the 8th century, this polarized and caused friction between the three. And it seems as well, and so I see, that any attempt of conquering the Khazars, had to be met with the kind of brutal force needed to prevent an invasion and an eventual coercion and an eventual conversion into Islam. Let's continue. There had been no lack of efforts by either court to convert the Khazars to Christianity or Islam, but all they resulted in was the exchange of diplomatic courtesies, dynastic intermarriages, and shifting military alliances based on mutual self-interest. So, of course, no no advancement there. Relying on its military strength, the Khazar kingdom, with its hinterland of vassal tribes, was determined to preserve its position as the third force, leader of the uncommitted nation of the steppes. At the same time, their intimate contacts with Byzantium and the Caliphate had taught the Khazars that their primitive shamanism was not only barbaric and outdated compared to the great monotheistic creeds, but also unable to confer on the leaders the spiritual and legal authority which the rulers of the two theocratic world powers, the Caliph and the Emperor, enjoyed. Let's stop there. An interesting insight. Now think of what they've just explained to us there. Within the Khazars, there was a barbaric and outdated, primitive shamanism. And that amongst the Khazars must have contributed to the kind of friction. I can see how this is leading toward their predilection toward warring with one another, and also the invitation of, let's say, the Ukrainians into the Khazar nation. Let's continue. What could have been more logical, I think I'm right, than to embrace the third creed, which was uncommitted towards either of the two, yet represented the venerable foundation of both, genius. The apparent logic of the decision is, of course, due to the deceptive clarity of hindsight. In reality, the conversion to Judaism required an act of genius. Yet, both the Arab and Hebrew sources on the history of the conversion, however varied in detail, point to a line of reasoning as indicated above. To quote Barry once more, let's read this. There can be no question that the ruler was actuated by political motives in adopting Judaism. To embrace Mohammedanism would have made him the spiritual dependent of the caliphs, who attempted to press their faith on the Khazars, and in Christianity lay the danger of his becoming an ecclesiastical vassal of the Roman Empire. Judaism was a reputable religion with sacred books with which both Christian and Mohammedan respected. It elevated him above the heathen barbarians and secured him against the interference of caliph or emperor. But he did not adopt, along with circumcision, the intolerance of the Jewish cults. He allowed the mass of his people to abide in their heathendom and worship their gods. How a strategic move this proved. My goodness, when you read things, when you understand with comprehension what's going on, it's good, might I mention, the thought that moves through the minds of woke Negroes of all kinds. And listen, here we also see imperatively the reason they did not want Negroes to read. I mean, it was more than just no need. It was this kind of truth they sought to impede. I need you to understand this was available at a time when reading for Negroes was nearly unassailable. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't matter if it was the 40s or 50s. Just stay with me, folks. You got to understand colored folks, Negroes, African American, and those other deceptive acronyms they use to describe us. In fact, with them, they're nothing like us. We are Negroes, educated, intelligent, thought-provoking. Okay, maybe I'm being a little outspoken. Here we go. I'm going to continue with the show. Relax. Though the Khazar's court's conversion was no doubt politically motivated, it would still be absurd to imagine that they embraced overnight, blindly, a religion whose tenets were unknown to them. In fact, however, they had been well acquainted with Jews and their religious observances for at least a century before the conversion, through the continued influx of refugees from religious persecution in Byzantium, and to a lesser extent from countries in Asia Minor conquered by the Arabs. We know that Khazaria was a relatively civilized country among the barbarians of the north, yet none committed to either of the militant creeds, and so it became a natural haven for the periodic exodus of Jews under Byzantine rule, threatened by forced conversion and other pressures. Now we're going to stop there. You know, the king Bulan was principal in a vast conversion that happened within the Ukrainian nation, King Bulan, B-U-L-A-N. And so this kind of history falls in line with the history we read regarding those Ukrainians. The conversion avoided either rule from Rome or rule from, well, the Middle East, as they call it, the Arabs. And so what an interesting way to establish this. Now we're going to move on to the next chapter. Hope you guys are here for at least a little while, because this is going to take a minute. I'm going to go through this. All right, so this is going to be chapter 3. Let's look and see what we see. Here we go. Boom. Chapter 1, part 3. Wow, we're on to something, aren't we? All right, so chapter 1, this is chapter 1, part 3. We're nowhere near done. The decline. Decline, not the decline. That's mine. Part 1. It was, wrote Dr. Sinar, in the second half of the 8th century that the Khazar Empire reached the acme of its glory, that is. Between the conversion of Bulan, bam, and the religious reform under Obadiah. Wow, I did not know that they would quote that. This is not meant to imply that the Khazars owed their good fortune to the Jewish religion. It is rather the other way around. They could afford to be Jews because they were economically and militarily strong. My God, so you got to afford to be a Jew. Isn't that odd? No, not really. I understand. All right, a living symbol of their power was the Emperor Leo the Khazar, who ruled Byzantium in 775 to 780. So named after his mother, the Khazar Princess Flower, the one who created a new fashion at the court. Well, now, we remember that her marriage took place shortly after the great Khazar victory over the Muslims in the Battle of Ardabil, which is mentioned in the letter of Joseph and other sources. The two events, Dunlap remarks, are hardly unrelated. However, amidst the cloak and dagger intrigues of the period, dynastic marriages and betrothals could be dangerous. They repeatedly gave cause, or at least provided a pretext for starting a war. The pattern was apparently set by Attila, the erstwhile overlord of the Khazars. In 450, Attila said to have received a message accompanied by an engagement ring from Honoria, sister to the West Roman Emperor Valentinian III. Interesting. This romantic and ambitious lady begged the Hun chieftain to rescue her from a fate worse than death, a forced marriage to an old senator. and sent her ring. Attila promptly claimed her as his bride. Well, good. Together with half the empire as her dowry. And when Valentinian refused, Attila invaded Gaul. Wow. So that is an interesting development. So the sister, or rather the sister of the emperor, offered herself to the Khazar king. And she was trying to avoid getting married to an old senator. I don't know about you, but I'm imagining, some of the senators we got in this country. I can't imagine. She did not want that fate. And so, interesting that Valentine refused. Attila invaded Gaul. Several variations on this quasi-architectural theme crop up throughout Khazar history. We remember the furor of the Belgar king about the abduction of his daughter, and how he gave this incident as the main reason for his demand that the caliph should build him a fortress against the Khazars. If we are able to believe the Arab sources, similar incidents, though with a different twist, led to the last flare-up of the Khazar Muslim wars at the end of the 8th century after a protracted period of peace. Now, so there is a decline. We also see the mention of King Bulan, and that's good for me. Very interesting that these events are recorded in history, because you can research them and that leaves no mystery. Now, we've been at this for a minute. I want to continue through at least part 3, chapter 1. And after I'm done with this part, I'm done. But I'm going to have part 2 for you tomorrow. It's true. Because on this series, we're nowhere near through. Let's continue. All right. According to Al-Tabari, in AD 798, the date, however, is uncertain, the Caliph ordered the governor of Armenia to make the Khazar frontier even more secure by marrying a daughter of the Kagan. This governor was a member of the powerful family of the Barmecides. Sounds like some kind of insecticide, which incidentally reminds one of the prince of that eponymous family in the Arabian Nights who invited the beggar to a feast consisting of rich dish covers with nothing beneath. Well, what a trick. The Barmecide agreed, and the Khazar prince, with her suite and dowry, was duly dispatched to him in a luxurious cavalcade. But she died in childbed. The newborn died too, and her courtiers, on their return to Khazaria, insinuated to the Kagan that she had been poisoned. Boy, they love poisoning people, don't they? Well, I mean, they're into that. Kind of interesting. Seems a common theme. Sorry, you know what I mean. The Kagan promptly invaded Armenia and took, according to 2 Arab sources, 50,000 prisoners. The Caliph was forced to release thousands of criminals from his gaols and arm them to stem the Khazar advance. The Arab sources relate at least one more 8th century incident of a misfired dynastic marriage, followed by a Khazar invasion, and for good measure, the Georgian Chronicle has a particularly gruesome one to add to the list, in which the royal princess, instead of being poisoned, kills herself to escape the Kagan's bed. The details and exact dates are, as usual, doubtful, and so is the real motivation behind these campaigns. But the recurrent mention in the chronicles of bartered bribes and poisoned queens leaves little doubt that this theme has, well, had a powerful impact on people's imagination and possibly also political events. All right, that's where I'm going to land, because you can hear my voice. I know you can. All right, so, wow. A lot of turmoil, right? A lot of history. This gentleman, Mr. Koestler, he's quite a writer. I got to say that. You got to keep up with him. I do appreciate everyone tuning in. You can hear my voice is giving in. It's 10:45. I got to read this with vibe. You know I got to read this right. You know, so many shows that you can choose from. So many offerings out there. And I'm sitting there asking for money too. I mean, you know. So I try to be as succinct and exact as I can when I read to you folks. And I hope that you might return the appreciation by a donation, at which point you'll have your own copy of this publication. You can read it your damn self the way you want to. Okay, I'm through. All right, so tomorrow we'll start on part 2. And we'll read as far as we can get until we're through. Hopefully I can just get through those pages, but we'll see how it works. We're going through this in stages. All right. Thanks so much, folks, for tuning in. Please be sure, once again, to visit our sponsor, Twidware. And there it is right there. You know, I want to take the chance and kind of go through a process of, you know, checking out. But I don't want to be caught unaware of that. I have no doubt. Listen, try it yourself. Okay, twidware.com. Please use the promo code TDRS. Now let me explain. Before I regress, the code can only be put in at the process of paying for whatever item you might have chosen. So you need to understand that. You're not going to get the opportunity to put the code in until you check out. At that point, you go down there, you look at the bottom, you put TDRS capitalized, and they're going to shave off 10% of your order. All right? Again, and I appreciate you looking in. I've got to go. You know, my voice is about to give. Thank you for your donations. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for Detrina and Antoine Anderson while I mention. No, this isn't a show extension. Stop. I will be here tomorrow. Just don't forget to shop at twidware.com. There it is there. I got to go, folks, for my show goes and my voice knows it's time. All right. That's all the rhyme I got. All right. You guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in. I got to go away. Hey, wait. Jesus. If anybody dropped their phone, not my problem. That's first. Not here to solve them. All right. Before you go, let me give a little effort to ending this show. You know, I end it the same way every damn day because I got no choice. You hear what I say? The only reason I'm doing this every day at 10 o'clock, Sunday through Friday, and I won't stop. You guys keep walking around this country grinning. And some of you actually think you're winning. Probably more than likely sinning. But I'm not trying to go there with you. You go there with yourself. You're the person that has to look in the mirror. Okay? You're the person that stares back at you, right? I don't want you to think I'm trying to attack you. Okay? I'm trying to protect you, Negro, from all the dangers and all the lurking predatory strangers. You know what I'm saying. And I ain't playing. But here's what I need you to get through. Before I go, I'm going to say it too. Okay? Yeah, everybody wants to stay in their good graces, but for God's sake, get that goddamn grin off your faces. Okay, so now you can go. Don't forget to share the show.